Welcome to another progress report for the Foundation. So this week I've been doing a lot of work on the base view. There's several aspects of the base view I want to have be presentable for the tech demo that I'm getting ready to release, that people can play around with those basic building mechanics and see what they like, don't like. So I'm doing some work on that, and one of those things was the transition that I mentioned I'd be working on a bit more. I'm not trying to get it perfect, but there's some aspects of the transition behind the scenes that needed to be nailed down. Basically, saving and loading of the base has to happen during the transition, so I had to structure the transition in a way that the saving and loading had a place where it would take place without making the game lock up and freeze, because Unity isn't the most thread-friendly engine around. So I did do some work on that. I apparently built my base out in the middle of the ocean this week. Still haven't done my raycasting check for the water yet. I'll have to get on that. If you click here, you see it'll zoom in, go into a cloud cover, come back into the landscape. I also deliberately didn't show this last week, but I now have a reverse of the transition, so I can do that all the day long that I want to. Which is part of that, if you haven't seen, I've got a pretty, at least in my opinion, impressive, I've got a pretty impressive horizon that I built. And this horizon, I can reconfigure it in order to fit the different environments that the bases might be built in the future, like the Arctic or a desert or whatever. Some people were saying that the base was too small, but normally your camera's going to be up a lot closer. Each one of these squares is a meter squared, and that seems like a fairly reasonable size for the base. And if you make things much bigger than that meter, then it makes the physics side of things get messed up. And we always like physics for those explosions, right? So I got working on that. I also got the build pop-up popping up, and this is just a very, very basic look to what the build pop-up's going to be like in the future. So over here, it won't be a single button in the future. It'll be several different buttons that will have different categories of types of things you can build at your base. Maybe defenses, doors, maintenance, I don't know, containment, different categories of different things you can build in order to make it so there's less items being displayed. Also, just something I didn't mention last week, there's no timer on this screen, as you can see. That's because when you're in the base view, time will be paused. So you can spend as much time in here configuring whatever you want, and the time is not going to go forward. As a note on this digging aspect, when you dig out things, place buildings, anything like that, it's not going to happen instantaneously. Right now it is, because when I created this code I didn't have my time management piece in. But now I do. So when you build these things, they will place markers on them saying how long it'll take to complete that action. And so then when you leave the base and run time through and come back to the base, that time will be accounted for, and those things will be built if they had been built in the meantime. The other thing I got done this week was deleting. So if you see here, I can now delete things if I don't like them. So that's it for the work that I did on the base screen this week. The final few pieces I want to show you are here on the Geoscape screen. The first major thing that I did on here is that I switched from a gamma color space to a linear color space. This probably doesn't mean much to most people. It didn't even mean much to me until I made the change after doing some research. But it's going to allow us for a more realistic lighting model. For one thing, I don't know if you remember last time, but Africa was basically bleached out by the bright light of the sun. It just was a white smear that you couldn't see any detail on during the day. with a linear color space, the flare blinding effect doesn't wash out textures. So now the Africa is far easier to see the detail on during the day. There's lots of minor changes this will make to the coloring. I'll have to do some adjustments on various things as we go along, but most of the major adjustments I've already made. So things are already looking pretty good. Second thing that I wanted to show you was that I have added a glow effect to the boundaries. So during the night, these boundary lines are going to show up much better, and that should be pretty obvious here if I make some time pass and let the night fall over Africa and Europe here. Yep, so you can see that all those boundary lines come out bright and clear during the night. And then fade away back to their regular white line self during the day. The last little thing is that I have since fixed, or at least adapted the settings to be able to work for that sound problem that I mentioned previously. So now I'm not embarrassed to show off the sound effects because they don't sound like garbage. So I thought I would show you that nuke sound effect to see what you thought. So that's it for what I've done this week. This coming week I will be working on the base screen to try and get it to the point that I want it for the tech demo. It's not going to be super complicated, have a lot of things going on for it, but it should still be interesting to work with and to give feedback on what you'd like to see more with it or what you like about those features that I've added. I will also then continue to work on some of the interception logic that I put aside for a while, and try and get all those pieces working so that there's some things to play around with in the tech demo. Other than that, I will catch you next week.